Hi. We are continuing to read Screwtape's letters to Wormwood. This particular letter that I'm going to read really generated some thoughts that I thought were good for us to think about. Two things. Where do cults come from? And why did God make the world sacramental? Those are the two themes excuse me, that I got from this particular reading. As a Jehovah's Witness, I didn't believe I was in a cult. Most people who are in a cult don't recognize it. But for myself, I would say I didn't really have a very informed understanding of what cults were, because as Jehovah's Witness, I believed that I was in the only true religion. And so religions and cults, I couldn't really differentiate between the two of them. I was uninformed and had a very shallow impression of all of them. They were all bad in my eyes. Also, when it comes to calendar, I would say I never really thought much about why in the Old Testament, for example, did the Israelites have to celebrate certain things yearly and certain things weekly they had to do. They had a calendar in which they followed. As a witness, we didn't have a calendar. So why did God create a calendar for the Israelites to follow? And why does the church follow in that example and have a church calendar of things that they have that are repeated every year and every week? They have things that they do. Let's read Screwtape's letter, and then we'll talk about cults and calendars. My dear Wormwood, what we want, if men become Christians at all, is to keep them in a state of mind I call Christianity and. You know, Christianity and the crisis, Christianity and the new psychology, Christianity and the new order, Christianity and faith healing, Christianity and vegetarianism, Christianity and spelling reform. If they must be Christians, let them at least be Christians with a difference. Substitute for the faith itself some fashion with a Christian coloring. Work on their horror of the same old thing. The horror of the same old thing is one of the most valuable passions we have produced in the human heart. An endless source of heresies in religion, folly in counsel, infidelity in marriage, and inconstancy in friendship. The humans live in time and experience reality successively. To experience much of it, therefore, they must experience many different things. In other words, they must experience change. And since they need change, the enemy, being a hedonist at heart, has made change pleasurable to them, just as he has made eating pleasurable. But since he does not wish them to make change any more than eating an end in itself, he has balanced the love of change in them by a love of permanence. He has contrived to gratify both tastes together in the very world he has made, by the union of change and permanence, which we call rhythm. He gives them the seasons, each season different, yet every year the same, so that spring is always felt as a novelty, yet always as the recurrence of an immemorial theme. He gives them in his church a spiritual year. They change from a fast to a feast, but it is the same feast as before. Then he continues with this thought about the different time periods. Cruel ages are put on their guard against sentimentality, feckless and idle ones against respectability, lecherous ones against Puritanism, and whenever all men are really hastening to be slaves or tyrants, we make liberalism the prime bogey. The enemy loves platitudes of a proposed course of action. He wants men, so far as I can see, to ask very simple questions. Is it righteous? Is it prudent? Is it possible? Now, if we can keep men asking, is it in accordance with the general movement of our time? Is it progressive or reactionary? Is this the way that history is going? They will neglect the relevant questions. And the questions they do ask are, of course, unanswerable, for they do not know the future. And what the future will be depends very largely on just those choices which they now invoke the future to help them with, or help them to make. As a result, while their minds are buzzing in this vacuum, we have the better chance to slip in and bend them to the action we have decided on. The great work has already been done. Once they knew that some changes were for the better and others for the worse, and others again indifferent, we have largely removed this knowledge. For the descriptive adjective unchanged, we have substituted the emotional adjective stagnant. We have trained them to think of the future as a promised land, which favored heroes attain, not as something which everyone reaches at the rate of 60 minutes an hour. Whatever he does, whoever he is. Your affectionate Uncle Screwtape. So the thing that caught my attention here was the phrase, the horror of the same old thing. Around the rise of the Watchtower as an organization, there were a number of new religions and cults popping up. We're talking about the period between 1840 and 1875, Civil War period. There are things like the New Age movement, Mormonism, Adventism, modern occultism, Christian Science, all these things were springing up. And what did they have in common? They had a number of things that fix with this horror of the same old thing. They were restoring something that was lost. They had special knowledge or new light, and you had to get it through them. They were right. They were the correctors of things that had gone wrong. Everyone else is wrong. Tradition is wrong. They have a new message, an improved and expanded message. Christianity and. They are the elite. They have been specially chosen by God, and theirs is the new way that you go to get to God. And they all have a different Christ than the traditional Christ of the church. They have even a different Christ from each other when you analyze their different teachings. So this is where the horror of the same old thing came in, and this one phrase that he says, an endless source of heresies in religion. It explains why the cults are here. The other aspect that we said we would talk about are calendars. Why did God institute regular festivals for Israel to celebrate? And why does the church have a spiritual calendar of special remembrances every year? Our former pastor, Victor Shepherd, he used to talk about the world being sacramental. So he mentioned the fact that every season remembers different aspects of the Christian story. And in Israel, those were reminders for the people about what God had given them. So celebrations of gratitude and of remembrance of the occurrence of their exodus from Egypt. They all had a function of reminding and putting a person with their ideas surrounded around what God is doing and what he had done. So major Bible themes in every season, and this is true for the church as well. But even in our daily activities. I remember Victor talking about each meal we should be thinking about the fact that something had to die in order for us to live. So there's that sacramental element, even to a daily activity. The seasons remind us of things about what God is doing. You think of Easter and everything coming to life. You think of winter and things dying. Even the day and night, a new day, a new beginning, death, an end to a day. All of these things are sacramental and help us to keep our mind on God if we recognize them. With the Watchtower, there was no calendar. I would just say everything went on and on and on, the same forever. We had no signpost like the Old Testament had, and like the church itself has. I'm going to link you to, let me just see what my links were. 3 videos this time. One is called Slaves of Man. We did a series of them, and I'm just going to link the third one, which is It a Cult? Where the Way to the Way and Slander. And the second one, J.W. Org's Gnostic Heresy, Anointed Elite, Non-Physical Resurrection, New Light Gospel. And the third one, Why do JWs not notice Christ and the Apostles kept the Jewish calendar?